Hello and welcome to the Love of the Star podcast with Brian Broaddus, the Super Bowl champion, and myself, Eric Chiafalo with the G-Bag Nation, 105.3 The Fan. Great to have you in officially now 2 weeks away from round one of the 2025 NFL Draft. Broaddus, this is incredible. Is the hay in the barn? Are you still watching dudes, or is this all now you're just cruising to the finish line?
No, good English to start the day there. It's still watching guys, still trying to kind of find a way. There's some guys that maybe I missed at the combine. They ran well, measurables. I'm trying to get this thing. I'm above 200 players now for my goal, which I normally set. By the way, if you're interested on 105.3 The Fan on our website, the week of the draft, I will have my board that I actually put together like I would in a war room of all the players on that board who I've seen. I'll have all my names stacked for you. So from 1 to over 200 and whatever number I finish out with. But yeah, it's getting close to putting this thing to bed. As you know, Eric, we got a really early jump on it this year. I usually go December 1st. And instead I went November 1st just because of the way the Dallas Cowboys record was and, needing to get on the draft. So, I've got it kind of situated where I need, but it's likely going to be right at about 220 players if I had to guess as far as the number of guys that I've seen. But yeah, we're getting to the end of it.
I love it. All right, we're going to get to plenty of draft stuff. Of course, we have the Dean Julia mailbag as well. I just wanted to do a couple of Cowboys housekeeping things. You have Saahdiq Charles getting picked up on the offensive line there, just another veteran body who can add some depth there on the interior of the offensive line. He was retired last year. He was supposed to start for the Titans last year, but then he up and retires before the season started. Gets reinstated, Titans release him, and now the Cowboys pick him up. But he's a former fourth-round pick, LSU guy. So just some added depth. I wasn't sure if you had any thoughts on that.
Yeah, I do. With Charles, he is an LSU alum. Know the player well. Came out in the 2020 draft. There were some things that off the field stuff, things that they dealt with, red flags, if you want to say, at LSU. With this player. Again, that was, 5 years ago. But when he came out, but the coaching staff there just, tried to keep things under control, tried to maintain what they had. He was a really, really good player for LSU. But there were some things coming out that might have affected his draft stock then. I think the reason the Cowboys make a veteran signing like this, people kind of wonder, and you mentioned depth and things like that. Sure, he'll compete. The guy has been a starter. But what you also now have to think about, though, is guys like Joe Milton playing quarterback in the preseason. And when you look at veteran offensive linemen that can play in preseason games, it might help your evaluations of some other positions. It might help your evaluations, say, you have, like I say, a young Joe Milton. You're trying to get an evaluation. You got young wide receivers trying to get an evaluation. You have a veteran blocker who has made starts in the National Football League, and all of a sudden he's playing in the second halves of preseason games. Well, veteran offensive lineman blocking against maybe a priority free agent for the Rams or the Raiders or whoever the Cowboys play in the preseason. Maybe that helps them with the evaluation of Joe Milton. You don't want Joe Milton back there. You don't want Isaac Alarcon, the former international player. And nothing against Isaac at times. I mean, I make it sound like I'm picking on him, but he was trying to play defensive tackle to offensive lineman. And so he was having his own struggles in these games, and you really couldn't evaluate the offensive players because of mistakes that he was making along the way. And so this gives you the opportunity to have a veteran in there and your quarterback's not running for his life, going up against guys that are trying to make other clubs. So it's got a strategic value to it as well. You're trying to have a guy see if he can recapture some of the things that he did back in the day and play for your team and maybe be a rotational piece. Or you could also use it as we're going to be able to evaluate Joe Milton, the running backs, and the wide receivers because our quarterback in the preseason, when we call a play, isn't going to be running for his life.
Man, that is a fantastic point. My goodness. Thank you for that insight, because I had not considered that at all. But it makes all the sense in the world.
Yeah.
And that's why you get paid the big bucks right there. Brian Broaddus, ladies and gentlemen, NFL scout. That's good stuff, because the Joe Milton stuff is definitely going to be interesting. He's probably at the top of the list right now, at least before the draft. Of guys I'm most excited to watch when we get out to Oxnard for training camp and see how he spins this thing. But in regards to him, it looks like he's going to be going with the number 10. So you go from Cooper Rush, number 10, to now your new backup quarterback, Joe Milton. He's going to be rocking the number 10. Of course, Broaddus, we got the news about our buddy, the Marvion Overshone. He's making the jersey switch as well, the number switch to back to the college days, going with the 0, so he can officially be back into his Agent 0 era. And he's coming off the injury, and all signs point to him being, right on schedule, if not a touch ahead of schedule in terms of his recovery. He had an obliterated knee, which is as heartbreaking as it gets. He was a monster last season, 2 years in a row now coming off knee injuries, this one being more serious. But you saw the way he attacked the first one with the ACL. His rookie year, came back last year, was fantastic. And it seems like all signs point to him being, still probably a October, November type of return, right?
Yeah, he, as you mentioned, is and congratulations to you. You were the one reading all the cryptic messages, and on 105.3 The Fan, well before this even happened, it was, man, this guy's changed his number to 0, and we're able to get confirmation of that, and so congratulations to you on that. We saw the big rollout. I think he just kind of wanted to have a moment of like, hey, I'm now Agent 0 again. And the Dallas Cowboys said, no, wait a minute. You're one of our most popular players. People love you. Let's make this a big production. Why don't we show up at a facility? You can grab the first jersey off the rack. You can model it. You can wear it. And we'll find that thing at the pro shop for $119.95. And so, yeah, this is the things that you want to give the Cowboys grief about. These are the things they're really good at. They're really good at saying, now, wait a minute. Think about, you just want to kind of on Twitter say that you're going to change jersey numbers? Nah, man, we got a better plan than that. Let's just actually go to the place where they make the jerseys, and we will have a big rollout, like it's Louis Vuitton or Polo or whatever big thing you want to wear.
Yeah, we're going to make a show out of this.
We're going to make a show out of this. We're going to get a lot of engagements on Twitter. Everybody's going to love it. Matter of fact, I did a show yesterday with Nick Harris, and I was leaving the Star, and Nick was walking past me, so I thought he parked in the visitor's garage. I said, hey, man, you need a ride? He goes, nope, got family in East Texas that wants an Overshone jersey, so I'm heading over to the pro shop. So he was making his way over. Here we are, we get done with the show, and then now we got folk in the family that want the jersey. So but good for him, but good for you. You called it well in advance. You were reading the cryptic messages, and I had some connections that are like, yeah, he's going to change his number, and it all kind of worked out for everybody there.
It all fell together. That's my wheelhouse. The useless, non-real, hard-hitting football things. I can get the scoop on the jersey number, the innocuous jersey number change. That's my wheelhouse. All right, you're listening to the Love of the Star podcast. Love of the Stars and Audacy podcast. You can find it on the Audacy app or wherever you get your podcasts. Now, Broaddus, I wanted to get into a couple of draft questions with you.
Sure.
I wanted to start. I know this has been something that you've been on, and we've talked about it, and you've talked about it with Walchuk. But the Luther Burden stuff, wide receiver out of Missouri, who was a guy that for a while felt like he might be a top 10, 15 pick, and then you see sometimes now he's slipping all the way out of the first round in some of these mocks. And there was some sort of like maybe some personality questions perhaps about him. And I'm curious what else you've uncovered, because I saw Clarence Hill talking about how some of the practice habits and just sort of the general assertiveness. Like, you always want your best guy at any position to kind of be like, hey, I'm the leader. I'm first in drills. I'm doing this. I'm leading the charge. We practice hard. Let's go. And I guess that's one of the things that maybe rubbed some people the wrong way when they went and watched him practice at Missouri.
Yeah, all it does is take one or two scouts to realize to ruin a good day for everybody. Like maybe the kid was having a bad day and really didn't feel like practicing as they were getting ready for Tennessee, Chattanooga. But a scout had to put in his notes that, this kid doesn't want to practice hard. And, he spent more time dancing to the music over off to the side than he did, catching toe tap balls in the end zone. It's amazing. The two of the best receivers in the draft, Tet McMillan he admitted it, hey, a couple years ago, I'm really not interested in watching football on the weekend. He said that the world went ablaze then. And then all of a sudden, Luther Burden, who, if you want a receiver that's going to catch the ball and punish your secondary, trying to cover him and tackle him because of run after catch. I was watching Missouri the other day. They were playing, oh God, I forgot who they were playing. It was one of these fifth, sixth round guys I'm looking at, and I'm watching them trying to cover Luther Burden, and he's just dicing their secondary up. And I'm going, okay, yeah, he's a diva. He's this, he's that. But yeah, hey, listen, Clarence Hill is not wrong. And it's not something that's, not every player is going to be a glass eater. There was a time in my life that these kinds of things would bother me. We live in a different era now with scouting. We really, really do. People are their own brands. I'm a brand. You're a brand. We're all brands. We do what we do to keep us, keep us going. It's part of our life. Some of us work really, really hard at it. Others really it just comes very natural. There's some very natural players in this draft. Guys that maybe aren't. Maybe there's more guys than not that are like Tet McMillan, that football is a way of life, way of paying bills. But their brand. But yeah, Eli Drinkowitz, the coach at Missouri, had to come out, had to defend his receiver. There was word that Dallas was not really interested in him at all. And, so you're sitting there thinking, okay, well then maybe he's not going to be a part of this. Maybe it's going to be about Golden and McMillan and Ibuka and those guys. But sure enough, what have they done? They visited with all of them. Dallas is clearly hunting a receiver in this draft. And, and I would not have a problem. I would not have a problem with taking any of those guys at 12. Wouldn't have a problem at all taking McMillan. Wouldn't have a problem taking Burden. Wouldn't have a problem taking Ibuka, Golden. Wouldn't have a problem with any of those guys at all because they're difference makers. They might be divas. They might not watch football on every Sunday and live and die every game. But when they have to play, they're difference makers. And you need to remember that. Like I say, there was a time where I would be, doesn't like football, doesn't just think about it every single minute. That was that time. Not anymore. We live in a different age now. People have outside interests. People are different. Do we always like what we hear or see? No. But that's the way that the NFL is right now. A lot of personalities and a lot of different takes there.
When you talk about taking one of these guys at 12, is that a best player available situation in your mind? Or
more
okay, because it's obviously a need, but I didn't know. You feel like that kind of marries beautifully between best player and need. Surefire, let's go.
Oh yeah, I'm not window dressing my board. I'm not going to window dress it. And to be honest with you, I have Golden as with the second round grade, a top of the second round grade. But when I talk about taking him at 12, I have a feeling I have 15 first round grades, and he's just outside that window. Say he's player 16. Now the Cowboys might have him in a 15-player first round. They might have McMillan at 4. They might have Burden. Let's do this. Let's go. They might have Golden at 6. They might have him well inside their top 12 or top 15. Me personally, the order I would go is I would go McMillan, Burden, Ibuka, and then Golden is what I would do. Did I get that right? Did I say that right? McMillan, then Burden, Ibuka, then Golden. That's it. I got it right. The old man brain finally worked there for a minute. But yeah, got them all 4 there. And that's the order I would have them in. But I think that every one of them at consideration at 12, would absolutely be fine. The thing about this is a very interesting draft, as we've talked about for months now, that it doesn't have a lot of, usually you'll have anywhere between 18 to 23 first round grades. Some teams will have maybe 12, some will have 15. Myself, I have 15. So some of these players, like I say, a Golden will be player 16 and will be more than worthy to be able to be selected at 12, if that's what you want to do.
And it seems like the wide receiver stuff is certainly gaining a ton of steam in terms of the Cowboys at 12. I'm sure they would love to be able to trade down in a perfect world, but there's obviously no way to really know until you're on the clock if that's going to be something that is possible for you. But do you feel like right now, if the Cowboys were playing a game this Sunday, would your biggest question be about the wide receiver opposite CeeDee Lamb? What would be your biggest question?
Running back. You don't have a running back. You could talk about the guys that they brought in, and like I said, there's I think Williams is a better player just because of his because of his catching ability and his blocking ability. Other than that, I don't think you have I think you actually have gotten worse at running back. Well, people say, well, Brian, what about Deuce Vaughn? Brian, Deuce Vaughn has done nothing for you. He can't play special teams. He can't, and people say, well, you got to give him a chance. Well, we've seen Deuce Vaughn with some chances, sometimes you flash and sometimes you don't. They need to get better at running back. This is why there's such a push from people. And, a guy like Mel Kiper, it terrifies me in a way. And I don't mean this as any slight to Hampton at North Carolina. I don't know if I'd pick him at 12. I'd pick one of those wide receivers over him. Like if I have Hampton in the second round, I would pick Golden, who I have in the second round, over him. I just would, So that's, even though Dallas is, dying at running back right now, I think they are, and until proven wrong, the upgrades they've made have been with the coaching staff. There has not been upgrades of personnel. There's been upgrades with the staff. A new offensive line coach, a offensive coordinator that was a line coach that's committed to running the ball in some creative ways. So to me, as much as I'd want to get something, if the one running back, of course, is Genty that I would pick at 12, absolutely pick him at 12. But that's, like I said, I'm more committed to some other positions, and, running back right now is one of them. Wide receiver, running back. I could very well see the Cowboys going running back, wide receiver with the first two picks of this draft, depending on what running back is there at 44. Me personally, I've got 5 rounds of good running backs.
Right.
I've got 3 rounds of really good running backs. So to me, I would not go past the 3rd round on a back here if I could help myself. I really, like I said, I've got 3 rounds of really good running backs and 5 rounds of good running backs. So I would try my best to stay in that very good category.
Yeah, and I know there's been plenty of mock drafts that have had a guy like Omarion Hampton being taken by the Cowboys at 12 from North Carolina. And I mean, even just I remember the quote from Schottenheimer at the owners' meetings where he's like, it's been proven over the course of the last 8 to 10 years, the depth and the ability to find backs late in the draft make it to where it's not really a priority in the first round. So I'm pretty confident. Would you say, like, on a scale of 1 to 10 confidence meter, 10 being confident that they will pass on a running back in the first round? Because I'm like,
I asked this question. I asked this question about Hampton, and I got we would not take Hampton at 12.
Right.
I got so, now let's see what happens when the commissioner gets to the podium and the way that the draft falls. They do like Hampton. Don't get me wrong. I just don't think they would take him at 12 unless they feel like that he is clearly that close to Genty, where they would take him and then they would turn around at 44 and then look at one of these wide receivers or maybe a defensive tackle or something like that. But I got the vibe, and like I say, this is all, this time of year you have to kind of hedge your bets, but I felt like with some certainty from my sources that they would not take Hampton at 12. That's just the feeling I got. But until the commissioner stands up there and opens the draft, you don't know exactly what's happening. But that's what I think right now as we tape this show.
Well, that's great news. Yeah, 2 weeks out from the draft, round number 1. I have a couple of over-unders for you in terms of where players will be selected. This coming from Bet Online, some NFL draft player props. So we'll start with, I think, the guy that is maybe just your overall favorite player in this class, Boise State running back Ashton Jeanty, over-under where he gets selected. They have it at number 8, over-under pick number 8. Ashton Jeanty selected.
I would say that's an under. And in my heart, I've believed that all along. And I know that you and I do our afternoon show together, and we've talked about Ashton Jeanty now for months. And when we started to work on the draft, really had started more conversations in January. He was one of the most mocked players, and mocked in a way of selected by mockers for the Dallas Cowboys at 12. It was every week we had a new mock draft with Ashton Jeanty, and I, in my heart of hearts, believe that you're not going to see Ashton Jeanty at 12. I just couldn't believe it because I had seen enough of the players by then, some of the top players, that I knew that he was better than. When you start to talk about the list, the stack that I mentioned that I'm going to post on 105.3 The Fan, Travis Hunter, Ashton Jeanty, Carter, those are the types of guys that are going to be at the top of my stack. You're talking about the second or third overall guy on my stack. So when we were talking about him being drafted at 12, I said, people are not that stupid. People are not that stupid. We can have discussions about the value of a running back, but we can also have the discussions about the best player in the draft. There comes a point in time where you could sit there and say, well, the running back position that has no value, and I'm like, cool, but my responsibility is to pick the best player in the draft when it's my turn. That's my responsibility to help my team. And people now, you can't get Ashton Jeanty to 12 to the Cowboys. No. You can't get him to 12. Because you know why? Because media scouts have caught up to the fact that Ashton Jeanty is one of the best players in the draft. Period. I sat there and watched it. I'm like, you're not going to tell me that he's not one of the best players in the draft, regardless of position. Love Hunter. Love Carter. Love Ashton Jeanty. Those in a draft that might seem very first round talent void. It's one of the best players in the draft. And I think any drafts that you would have, any drafts you have, go back to the Bijan Robinson drafts, go back to drafts of days gone by, 5-10 years ago. This would be one of the best players in the draft. I think his ability transcends all previous drafts, and I knew it. So yes, he's going to go well before that pick.
Yeah, I think as early as 3, even to the Giants. If Travis Hunter is going to be off the board, and maybe they have questions about Abdul Carter's foot or his character, or they feel like they already have quite a few guys on the edge spot, I think as early as 3 or 4 to the Giants or Patriots, and then certainly no later than 10 with the Bears. And anything in between there. The Raiders at 6 has been a popular one where he's getting mocked too. And I do love the idea of Jeanty, Brock Bowers, Chip Kelly, now the offensive coordinator. That's pretty sexy stuff there. So I would definitely imagine Ashton Jeanty gets picked before pick number 8. How about Jackson Dart, Ole Miss quarterback, over under selection, pick number 23.5?
That's a really interesting line, because Pittsburgh's picking at 21.
Right.
And the question is, would Shedeur Sanders fall? And does that make him more in play than Jackson Dart? I was listening to Adam Schefter on our station with Sean and RJ, Bobby, morning he was on. and he was trying to present a case that Cleveland's looking now more at Hunter. And so, what are the Giants and others going to do if he gets past the Giants? Say the Giants go for a second-round quarterback, where does he fall to now? And so I'm going to say that Dart's going to go. I'm going to say he's going to go inside of that because I think Sanders will be picked. Excuse me, not Sanders. I think Dart will. Okay. I say Dart inside. I think Sanders is going to go before. So yes, I think they're both kind of in that possibility.
Okay, yeah, because Shedeur Sanders over under for his draft selection is pick number 9. So
see, if he gets past 9, now there's the slide potentially all the way down to now the Saints. That might be the team. That might be and I see what they're doing here. They're trying to kind of level these quarterbacks. They're hedging where Dart very well could go to Pittsburgh at 21. Sanders very well could go to the Saints at 9. Very well. If he gets past the Saints, now you got a situation where it's who do you like better, Dart or Sanders, and that might be a Pittsburgh decision.
Okay, last one for you. Penn State tight end Tyler Warren. They have his over-under draft selection at pick 9.5. Do you expect him to be a top 10 pick?
That's interesting, especially how well Brock Bowers did. But we've also seen, Kyle Pitts be picked very high and not have the type of success. So the last couple of years, there's been that kind of that, a good and a bad or a bad and a good, whichever way you want to look at it. This guy's a really, really talented guy. I'm going to say it's going to go behind that. I'm going to go behind that number.
Okay.
I'm going to go over. I'm going to go over that number.
Over. Okay. All right. Fantastic. Yeah. There's a little draft conversation for you with the best in the business, Super Bowl winning scout Brian Broaddus. I'm Eric Chiafalo, and you're listening to the Love of the Star podcast. Love of the Star is an Audacy podcast. You can find it on the Audacy app or wherever you get your podcasts. Broaddus, it is now time for the Dean Julia mailbag, courtesy of our fantastic listeners, teeing up fantastic questions for you. Jim Callery at Lone Star 2162. If wide receiver goes at pick 12, who would you take if available at 44? Would you be more interested in taking a corner like an Amos or Ravel, or would you be more interested in taking like a Henderson or a Johnson at running back?
Man, that's a great question. That's a great question. These people know me pretty well because the players they gave you. I would take me personally. This is just me, and and he's asking me. I'm going to say what I would do, and I'm going to say what I think they would do. I think at 44, I would take Ravel because that would give me. Say you take McMillan or receiver. Say you take a receiver. Ravel is a first round corner on my board. So this has got the kind of the vibe of. Diggs was a guy that was a lot of people thought was going to be picked at 17. He was picked at 60. So this has got the vibe of a CD Diggs kind of a draft to me, if it comes to that. And we've seen that both these players have been outstanding for you. I personally would take the corner. Now, if you didn't go the corner, I think maybe a defensive tackle might be in play here too. A defensive tackle might be in play. The running back is clearly in play at that situation as well. So I would likely myself would take Ravel. Dr. Dan Cooper did the surgery on Ravel's knee, so they know exactly what this player is. He came in on a 30 visit as well. So Dr. Cooper got another chance to see his patient and kind of give them the, hey, thumbs up, he's going to be ready to go. It would come down to me. I love Johnson more than I do Hampton, but I'm just going to say for positional sake, corner, running back, defensive tackle, those would be the three positions that I would look at 44, whoever is on that board. And I talked about the defensive tackle, I'm thinking kind of that one technique guy. Is what
Absolutely.
I'm looking at there.
Now, do you think the Cowboys are valuing that as well? Like, do you think they know that they got to upgrade from Mozzie Smith, or do you feel like
they got to? No, they're not comfortable. They've
Okay,
got it.
good.
They've got to have competition for Mozzie. They got to bring in some competition and hopefully, either push him or make it to where this one technique comes in, starts right off the jump. And Mozzie's a backup role or support role or whatever he has to do, rotational player. But they do need some competition there. They, you look at what they've done at the 3 technique, kind of taking care of that, with Osa and others, Solomon Thomas is the backup there. I think they're okay. Yeah, but that one technique, they're going to need some help there with Mozzie. So I think that they're looking at the 3 positions that I told you, and I can't tell you what my gut feeling would be. The gut feeling would be running back, corner, defensive tackle. Could be wrong about that, but I kind of feel like that's the order that they would look at.
Yeah, I think that's one of the most interesting things about the Cowboys right now. If they don't end up doing any sort of trading and adding like an extra pick in the first 3 rounds or the 4th round, as it stands right now, you have your first, second, third round pick, and then you got a long drought before you pick
a
again
long way. Yeah.
And in my mind, Broadus, you're looking at receiver, running back, run stopping, one tech, defensive tackle, and corner. Those are 4 surefire. In my mind, you need 4 starters. You only got 3 picks in the first 4 rounds. So which position is sort of the odd man out, I think is going to be a very interesting thing, unless of course they maneuver around and pick up more picks.
Yeah, I like I said, I think I handicapped him. My first one would be the corner, just because selfishly we always want the guys that we studied and the guys when we put our boards together and stacks together. Selfishly, we want them to draft our players, but they don't always see it eye to eye to us. But I know one thing: you take McMillan and you take Ravel, you're taking 2 players likely. You're taking one player probably in my top 6, and you're taking another player in my top 12 off the board. So with those, with 12 and 44, you're getting, in my opinion, the 5th or 6th best player in the draft, and then maybe the 12th best player in the draft.
I'm curious. I know that you like the running back out of Iowa, Caleb Johnson, quite a bit, and he's your second best outside of Genty, right? Genty's 1. Right. You have Johnson 2. Some of the criticisms, not even necessarily criticisms, but just the analysis of him is that he is much more of a zone runner. And I think Iowa ran a lot of zone. Do you feel like there's kind of a one-trick pony aspect to certain running backs? Like some guys can play in almost any type of scheme, and some guys are just, this is what they do? Or is that, hey, Caleb Johnson only had the opportunity at Iowa to be mostly a zone runner, so and projecting him to sort of different schemes? Like I've seen Hampton is a guy that people feel like, hey, versatile and scheme versatility with this back, but Johnson maybe more of a teams that are really leaning on the zone rushing scheme would be more interested in Johnson.
Yeah, I mean, to me, I think that Johnson could play. The one thing you're going to figure out real fast what you're good at, when you get these coaches in here, and the thing that Johnson can do is he can make cuts. He runs with power. He can break tackles. He's really good around the goal line. There's a lot to really like about him. The pin and pull stuff. I've seen Iowa tape where their tight ends block down. He gets the edge. He's around the corner. They got an angle on him with a linebacker or a safety. He's in the end zone. I like I say, I have no problem with Hampton. I have no problem with Henderson, but I like Johnson just a little bit more. I like his running style a little bit better. I think he can adapt. I don't think he's just the one-trick pony guy. I think he's got that ability, to run through tacklers. I think he's got the ability to make people miss. I think he's a guy that plays with some burst to his game. So I have no problem. I have no problem with him. I think he can adapt. All 3 of those, like I say, the first 4 running backs that I have on my board, I think are all outstanding players. And like I say, I could get into the 3rd round and get you some very good players. But I just feel like that Johnson's ability, his size, his workload, his power, his ability to the vision to see the hole, get through the hole, and then finish runs. I think it's just a little bit better than Hampton's, but I'd be happy with either one, to be honest with you.
Final question here in the Dean Julia mailbag. C. Raphael on Twitter, Pro Ash de Reaper, is asking about the Notre Dame corner, Morrison. Why he's just asking, like, why does it feel like he's not being talked about more as a player?
His hips,
Cowboys in the second round.
His hips. I got a first round grade on him as well, but he's had surgery on his hips. He's had a couple of surgeries on his hips, and there's some questions about that, and that's why people are not talking. When he plays, he's one of the best corners in the country. The reason why that I have Will Johnson in the second round, not just because of the speed and I don't know the time. People think I'm hating on the corner from Michigan. I'm really not. I've just got guys like Morrison, Barron, Reville. I've got guys like that just better on my board. If you give me an opportunity to select one of my first round guys, I'm going to take it every single time. Morrison is that way to me. I think people are not talking about him because they are concerned about the hips. He very well could be a consideration, like we're talking about Revelle, at 44, but for somebody else. But he is a really good player. But the injury history for him at a position where he has to turn, move, run, and stuff like that, a lot of people are questioning that. And I'm just putting him on the board where I think I would take him because I know the type of player he is. Could their hip problem be something prevalent in the future? Sure. Absolutely. You have to weigh that. I don't have that luxury. I don't have the luxury to be able to say, I used to be a time where I'd walk into a meeting and I would know, hey, Britt Brown, Jim Maurer, tell me about this guy's hips. Well, he's got degenerate hips. It's going to be a problem long term. There's some concerns for Abdul Carter's foot. There's some pre-stress fracture things that are in that guy's foot. And, we're talking about him as a top 3 guy, top 4 guy. So there's some of these guys have things you could live with. Some of these guys have things you absolutely can't live with. We should be talking about Josh Simmons, the tackle from from Ohio State more. But, the patella tendon knee thing and all that. But he's one of the best players in the draft. You just sit down and watch the tape of these guys, and there's guys that have some serious medical conditions. Like I said, Carter is not, Campbell from Alabama, the linebacker, one of the best linebackers in the draft. Guy's got shoulder problems. He's got a knee problem. But we're all talking about him as potential first round guys. So there's quite a few of these guys that you have to bite the bullet and say, hey, we're drafting this guy because when he's healthy, he's one of the best players in the country, or that we're going to deal with something that 2-3 years from now it's not going to be good.
And Will Johnson, the Michigan corner, by the way, it looks like he is going to run next week.
Next Monday.
Scout. So
yeah,
that'll be interesting to see what that time looks like. Because I know that's really the biggest question you have about him.
Yeah, I do. I just like to compare him to the other corners and what their times are, because I do have some questions about his speed. Mm-hmm. And if he goes out there and rolls a 4.58, I'll understand. If he rolls a 4.48, I'm like, okay, cool. He did a good job. What's interesting about Johnson is that he's taking a lot of visits now. Teams are bringing him in on these 30-visit things. And I hope this training and therapy and all that stuff is good to go, because, like I say, he's taking a lot of trips. I hope he's ready to go on Monday. It'll be, like I say, it'll be interesting to see what that time is when it gets here.
Well, that'll do it for the Dean Julia mailbag. Thanks to all the fantastic questions from our wonderful listeners here on Love of the Star. And just 2 weeks now to the NFL draft. We'll have plenty more episodes coming out over the course of the next couple of weeks. Cowboys content, draft content with the best in the business. Brian Broaddus, Super Bowl winning scout. And we look forward to getting back in it. Have a great week, everyone. And we'll talk with you soon.